Welcome to the Zocks breakout at the eMoney Summit. Here to discuss AI in action, practical tips for eMoney users. Some quick housekeeping here off to the top right. If you have any questions, you could submit those questions as you see here. Some quick introductions. Stephanie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Stephanie Migdal. I'm an account executive at Zocks. I hand it to you, Drew.
Thank you. Drew DiMarino, Chief Revenue Officer here at Zocks. And by way of background, I was head of sales for eMoney Advisor. I was with eMoney for 8 years, so super exciting to be with the eMoney team at the eMoney Summit here today. After eMoney, I went on to Chief Growth Officer at Riskalyze, which is now Nitrogen Wealth, was there for about 4 years. And when I heard what the team at Zocks was doing, I came running on over. But the star of the show, and I'm very excited to introduce Scott Keegan, who's with us here today. He's the COO and Wealth Advisor for Gertsema Wealth Advisors. And Scott is joining us from St. Joseph's, Missouri. Welcome, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. So the purpose of our time here today, again, of course, as the segment is called, practical tips, right? We're here to talk with Scott about how he's using the Zocks integration, longtime eMoney user, how he's using that integration. To kick things off, though, I'm going to run through a couple slides, maybe spend about 2 minutes on slides, just so those of you that are not familiar with Zocks can get a general understanding of Zocks, which will be helpful for our discussion. And at the heart of our conversation here today will be with Scott. And then afterwards, Stephanie will show off the live demo of Zocks, with, of course, the highlight of that being the eMoney integration. So let's jump in. So Zocks, as you can see here, is an AI assistant for financial advisors, right? We're saving advisors and firms roughly 10 hours a week, and we're doing that by automating what was otherwise manual workflows. Michael Kitces said recently that we're sort of number one in value. What does that mean? That we're, for our price point, we do more. We have deeper integrations. They're bi-directional integrations. We're going deeper into workflows. So because of that, we're also the fastest growing provider in our space. And what are we doing? We're, again, automating what is otherwise manual workflows, things that you would have to do, spending quite a bit of time, as you can see here, on pre-meeting work, in-meeting, post-meeting follow-up, and saving advisors quite a bit of time there. And how are we doing that? Again, we'll dig deep in today on the meeting side, heavily focus on pre-meeting prep, what we can do in the meeting, of course, we don't record, we transcribe the conversation between an advisor and client. We transcribe that, we turn it into structured data, we feed it into your systems and workflows and forms. So what is unique to Zocks is we can fill out your forms and paperwork. What is also unique is we could reply to your client emails. And of course, we have insights and analytics on top of all that to help advisors and firms save about 10 hours a week. So the punchline of this slide is the more systems that we are integrated with on the left, the more helpful we can be on the right. So of course, Zocks is present in your client meetings. We have the eMoney planning integration we will showcase today. We're integrated with Orion reporting, of course, all the CRMs, your emails and calendars. And because we are that integration layer that sits on top of all of that, then we could be, the more information we have on the left is the deeper and more rich the meeting preparation is on the right. And just to give you a view into some of the integrations that we do have, I wanted to share this slide with you before we jump in and chat with Scott. So thank you for that. We'll just jump into a discussion. Scott, again, appreciate your time here today. Would love it if you could just sort of introduce yourself to the eMoney folks here that are joining our breakout today. I'll leave it to you for that.
Yeah. Like you said, my name's Scott Keegan. I'm our COO and Wealth Advisor here. I've been with the firm just shy of 5 years now. I kind of got into the business. Prior to this, I was a tax auditor for the state of Missouri, which was exactly as much fun as it sounds like it would be. And so that's kind of what piqued my interest in jumping a different space, and kind of got linked up with Nick Gertsema, our CEO, and just a really big planning focused firm. And that's really what I was looking for. So that's kind of how I got here today.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And then, Scott, talk to me a little bit about what brought you to Zocks? What are some of the challenges that you were hoping it would solve?
Yeah, so we kind of serve your typical millionaire next door, kind of the mass affluent client, big into retirement income planning, tax planning. And so with just kind of that client space, it's all about efficiencies because we're trying to grow the business and grow the book. And so with that, we need a lot of really good efficiency systems that free up our advisors' time so that they can be meeting with more clients, not bogged down by kind of the busy work or the follow up after a meeting is kind of where we were looking for Zocks.
Yeah, thank you. It makes perfect sense, and we're hearing that quite a bit as well. And then just to help the viewers here at the eMoney Summit, can you share with us your tech stack?
Yeah, so currently right now we're using Zocks, obviously big eMoney users. Our CRM is Salesforce. We use Orion for reporting, Plan for the tax planning, and then we just added Nitrogen, so we're going to be using that as well. So
Awesome. That's
yeah.
great. That's a beautiful tech stack. And then Scott, before we get into this a bit, I mean, there's quite a bit of hype, as you know. I mean, everything you see is all about AI. Like, how did you approach it? Where did you start? Just to help some of the folks that are viewing us here today.
Yeah, so we've kind of tried to use a few different tools. I think the big thing for us and where we really found Zocks helpful was just we needed something that solved daily issues, and we needed something that we could implement that already worked with our kind of processes and systems that we were using. We didn't want to recreate the wheel just to use AI. We wanted something that we could plug in right away and already see benefits, and that's kind of where Zocks came in.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. So I think what would be helpful, right, as we try and give some tips and tricks here as far as how this is going forward, is just to sort of follow the workflow, right? So if we started with prior, pre-meeting prep, can you chat with me and share with us here, like how is Zocks being beneficial in preparing for your meeting? So I guess if you could share with us what it was like before Zocks, how much time would you spend on meetings, and then just chat a bit about that if you could, please.
Yeah. So like I shared with the tech stack, we're using 5 different systems, and none of them really talk to each other that well. Some of them may have integrations, but you don't have any one source hub that's kind of pulling the information from everywhere. And so that's where, whenever we're using the pre-meeting prep with Zocks, it's looking at Salesforce, Orion, Plan now, and obviously eMoney as well. And kind of eMoney was that piece that we really wanted it to be able to talk with because that's, I would say, probably 75% of our meetings with clients are spent in eMoney talking about their plan, what's important to them. And so getting Zocks to be able to talk to eMoney, that was crucial for us because the majority of the rich data is in eMoney, and so it being able to pull the eMoney data is huge. And so prior to using the Zocks, we would have a paraplanner who's getting everything ready. He's making sure all the numbers and all the different systems match. So he's doing that could take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, kind of depending on the client. Then the advisor's got to go prep for the meeting themselves, kind of a little bit of double checking the work of the paraplanner, but then also making sure, hey, if I want to show this, I've got to make sure it's lining up in all these different systems. And so where Zocks comes in is, being able to pull all that data together, give it to us in a real nice layout in the pre-meeting, so that it's saying, hey, here's where I'm pulling this data from. Here's the numbers I'm getting, and it references it for us too, which is huge because it's not just like I'm blindly trusting it. It's telling me where it's getting all that data from is huge.
Yeah, that's great. Now, and we'll show that as well. We footnote as far as which system it came from. So that's super helpful, Scott. So if you had to put a guess out there, you're sort of talking about some times. If prior to Zocks coming in, what do you think you were spending on pre-meeting prep, and then now what would you sort of put that at?
Yeah, I would say prior to Zocks is probably anywhere, again, depending on the client size, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to get ready for a meeting. And now using the pre-meeting prep, it being able to pull all this data in, it's cut down. That's probably down to anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes for a meeting. So shaving off that time's huge because it just allows the advisors to be more focused on the clients, not double checking numbers.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Scott. Thank you. And then, so that's pre-meeting, very helpful. And then for in meeting, right? So obviously we're in the meeting, we're helping, transcribe the advisor client communications. Talk to me about what your process was like, before, and how Zocks and the eMoney integration is helpful in meeting.
Yeah, so at our firm, we always wanted the advisor to be able to just focus on the client. And so prior to Zocks, we always had two people in on every single meeting, have an advisor and then an operations associate in there taking notes. And so um, now that we're using Zocks, for one, Zocks can obviously take notes better than any human can. So I mean, I think the first, meeting we ran, we were blown away at the notes and the detail that it got from the meeting. And so, now that we're doing that, we don't always have to have an operations associate in there. It can either be the advisor can be in there, and the operations associate can still do all the follow up because they have all the notes there. And so an advisor can go in a meeting alone, or now that we have a paraplanner, we can bring him in on the meetings and allow him to just really not even focus on the notes so much, but he can just watch the advisor, learn how do I handle different situations, see the interaction, and he doesn't have to be glued to his computer trying to type up notes.
We've heard that a lot, Scott. That's great feedback there too, right? So, there's all this talk like, is AI going to be, take away jobs? And what we're hearing is like, no, in fact, it can help you deploy, your team in a way that is more beneficial, right? So your power planner can learn and focus on developing their skills to maybe become an advisor one day themselves, if that's what they want to do. Your admin, if they were in the room, maybe taking notes before, they can, focus on, different interactions. If they heard about a wedding upcoming or something, to maybe focus on, more of the personal side of that interaction. So super helpful there. I think you mentioned client sentiment when we were chatting in advance of this. I mean, talk to me a little bit about how that's been beneficial for you.
Yeah, that's been really big for us. There's a client sentiment score that kind of shows throughout the meeting here. The client was positive about this, they were negative about that, and that's just been really good for the advisors just to look at. It really helps if you've had a meeting with a client and then you're doing the prep for the next meeting with the client. You can see, hey, we talked about this, and they were really excited. They were on board about this topic, but maybe stay away from this topic, whatever it is. I'm sure all advisors have stepped on a landmine before, and it's like, need to remember not to bring that back up. Zocks can kind of help with that of looking at that client sentiment score afterwards, of knowing, hey, here are topics I want to make sure I bring back up. Here are some topics I either need to navigate carefully or just steer clear of.
Perfect. Super helpful. So sticking with our flow, we did pre-meeting, we did in-meeting. Talk to us a little bit about how Zocks is helpful, that Zocks eMoney workflow is helpful post-meeting.
Yeah, so post-meeting, the first thing is definitely sending out a follow-up email to the client. And so being able to just come right out of a meeting and that email's already right there. It's not always perfect, but it's done, maybe it's done 80% of the work, and so I don't have to do 100%. I just have to do the last 20. So having that's big. And then post meeting, the big thing with the eMoney integration is now Zocks, picking up on information that we've talked about with the client. Maybe there was a new 401k at a new job, or maybe income changed from prior meetings. And so Zocks being able to pick that up and then flow that over into eMoney, all with the click of a button, us just saying, yeah, I do want to import that over and update my eMoney plan. That's huge, because a lot of the times, advisors especially, we're really good in the meeting, but then after the meeting, we want to move on to the next thing, and so we don't always do that circle back around to update things always. And then, you're getting ready for the next meeting with that client, and it's like, oh crap, what'd they say? So that's big, that it can just do that for us. Again, with our operations associates, they don't always have to be in on the meeting to do the follow-up. And so that's big. They're able to just go in there and look at the meeting notes and say, hey, I pretty well have a good idea of what happened in there. I can do the follow-up emails. get those ready. And then the task, Zocks comes up with the tasks too, and that just goes straight over into Salesforce. So it's a big help on the post meeting as well.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback, Scott. Thank you. And yeah, we're hearing a lot of that too. That the your support staff is some of the biggest fans of Zocks because quite often maybe they weren't in a meeting, and prior to Zocks, you'd get maybe a yellow pad with some bunch of notes, sort of not saying you, but maybe others would sort of throw that over the wall to an admin and say, hey, your support staff say, hey, can you help me with this follow up versus detailed notes, follow up email already done. So super helpful. Yeah. Scott, this has been great. I want to sort of show off all that you just discussed here. So we're going to switch to Stephanie because we do want to highlight for those of you out there, like the application itself that is Zocks, and of course the eMoney integration. So we'll throw it over to you, Steph.
All right. Thank you, Drew. And thank you, Scott. And thank you, everyone else, for being here today. Like Drew said, I am now going to walk everyone through the platform so you can see in action a few of those features that Scott was talking about. All right, so where I'm going to start is in our upcoming meetings tab, where you can use Zocks to prep for your meeting beforehand. And I'm going to stick to high level, highlighting where we can integrate with eMoney specifically. So with our meeting prep, what we'll do is gather information from any of the systems that we're connected to. So whether that's your CRM, eMoney, your portfolio management system, even email. Instead of going through all of those different systems to gather information on the client, Zocks is going to do that for you. So you can see here on the left-hand side, we've got our default meeting prep template where we're bringing in information about what you talked about in your last meeting, giving a household summary, and then pulling in all of the financial details about the client. And you can see within Zocks where we're pulling all of this information from. So whether that's from a past meeting, your CRM, or of course, eMoney, you can double check all of that where it's coming in from down here as well. We're also going to draft up a pre-meeting email that you can send out to clients, and it can get sent straight from your own email. So Outlook, Gmail, whatever you're using, it'll go from your address, not a Zocks generated one. And I'll also point out within this meeting prep, our AI assistant, and you'll see this throughout different points within the platform. It's where you can ask Zocks a question about, again, any of the systems we're connected to. So if you don't want to comb through the eMoney fact finder or your CRM to look for a fact about the client, you can ask our AI assistant, and then we'll bring back the answer for you. And the meeting prep template, this is what our default one looks like. But if your office firm uses a specific outline or agenda for meeting prep, you can customize exactly what information Zocks is bringing in. Now what I'll do is show everyone what a meeting output looks like. So whether you were in a virtual call, in person, or over the phone, all of those results are going to show up in this past meetings tab. And it'll be generated just a few minutes after your meeting is over, so pretty immediate. Up at the top here, you'll see we've got the title, the timestamp of the call, and then Zocks will identify everyone who was in the meeting. And you can even see the percentage of time that everyone talked, which is always an interesting tidbit for advisors. And what I'll go over below is our meeting summary first. I like to refer to the meeting summary as the executive one-pager of everything that you talked about within the meeting. And what Zocks is going to do is organize that information based on topic. So for example, we've got non-financial personal information up here at the top. This is going to be anything that's not directly related to the financial discussion. So anything like where the client's kids might go to school or where they're going on vacation. Zocks is also going to organize all of the information by financial topic. So anything throughout the conversation that relates to estate planning or education planning, investment management, Zocks is going to organize all of that for you post-meeting. We're also going to produce a chronological summary based on all the different topics you discussed. and pull out those client talking points. So anything that the client might have been particularly excited or worried about, we're going to highlight those within the talking points. And then also any future meetings that come up throughout the conversation. So if you set a date and time, Zocks will pick that up and you can add it straight to your calendar. So if you're using Outlook, Gmail calendar, you can add it right there. Another thing that I'd like to highlight about the note output is because Zocks is doing a transcription of the conversation, there's no audio or video file that's ever created. It's very easy to go back into the transcript to double check what might have exactly been said during the meeting. So if you're ever questioning or just want more context around something that was summarized in the note output, you can highlight anything within the summary, click explain, and then Zocks is going to dig back into the transcript and bring up word for word what was said. Now, if you want to save these notes down into your CRM, super easy, and we connect to a lot of different ones. So Salesforce, Redtail, Wealthbox, a whole list. But I'll do Salesforce for this example. So let's do save to Salesforce. What Zocks is going to do is put all of the notes in one nice, neat page for you. And there's always a human in the loop that's determining what information gets saved down where. So if you wanted to delete anything that you don't need or even add some thoughts at the bottom, you can definitely do so. And then once everything looks good, you can choose the client that it relates to, connected from your CRM. And then when you press save, it'll save down to wherever you map your notes to. I'll also highlight the follow-up task section. So any action items or to-dos that come up throughout the conversation, Zocks is going to gather those here. And you can also save those down directly into your CRM. So in this case, I'll do save to Salesforce. You can choose exactly which action items you want to save down, adjust the due date, and then even assign them to somebody else on your team. Zocks is also going to produce a follow-up email for you post-meeting. So by default, this one, it's pulling out action items for the client, action items for the advisor, and then some other important things to note. But with the follow-up email and also the note output itself, they're highly customizable. Similar to how I mentioned meeting prep, you can template exactly what information you want Zocks to pull in. Here, you can customize exactly how you want the follow-up email or the note output to sound. So for example, with the follow-up email, if you want it to be a little bit more your style, sound like you, or follow an existing outline that your firm is utilizing, you can input that into Zocks, and then it'll format it in the style that you want. And similarly, with the note output, plenty of people use our default client meeting output. But if you have an outline or an agenda that you want the note output to reflect, you can input that into Zocks, and then it'll reflect that format. I'll also highlight another feature of our output, which is our forms section. So Drew touched on lightly how we're now helping advisors and team fill out forms and paperwork. We have a few default forms on the system, but you can create your own as well. So what Zocks is going to do is post-meeting, fill out the fields in this form for you, just based on what you talked about within your conversation. So if you have a specific account opening questionnaire, an intake questionnaire that you're using for a lot of different clients, you're asking those same questions, you can input that into Zocks, and then we'll fill out that form for you. And you can also set the form to fill out based on the meeting conversation, as well as fill out fields based on what you have in your other systems. So eMoney, your CRM, we can reference those as well to help fill out your forms. Another output is our meeting scorecard, where a lot of advisors and their teams are using Zocks as a performance tracking and coaching tool. So with our meeting scorecard, what we're doing is measuring 18 different key metrics throughout the conversation, things like Did you set an agenda at the beginning of the call? Did you let the client speak enough? Did you ask enough questions? We're identifying areas in the conversation that were strengths and then also areas to improve. And then based on all of those metrics, we're giving you a score at the end of the meeting to tell you how you did. Now, what I'm really looking forward to showing everyone, of course, is our eMoney integration and how we can fill out the fact finder based on what you talked about in your conversation. So right here, we've got Michael Miller, and I'll click our eMoney icon right here. And what Zocks is doing right now is analyzing what you have filled out in eMoney and comparing it to what you talked about in your conversation that Zocks was in on, and suggesting updates that you can make in eMoney. So for example, here on the left-hand side, this is what we're seeing in eMoney, and on the right are all of the suggestions that Zocks came up with based on what you talked about with the client. So we've got all of their contact information now. We have a lot more information on their expenses, all of which was blank before in eMoney. And you can, of course, decide exactly what information goes over to eMoney and gets updated. Again, there's always a human in the loop, so you can make any edits, or if you don't want to update anything, you can simply uncheck the boxes. So what I'll do just to demonstrate this client specifically, we've got Michael and Jennifer Miller, new clients, so we really don't have any information on these guys yet. I'll go into net worth, income, expenses and taxes. This is everything that still needs to be filled out within eMoney. In the advanced facts as well, we don't have any family information, nothing on their investments. So this is all what we would have asked in this discovery call. So what I'll do, I'll just press save right here. And what before could maybe take hours to fill out, line by line, field by field in eMoney, Zocks is going to update within just a few seconds here. All right, successfully updated. Let's go back to the basic facts here. And you can see now we've got way more information on the client. So this was all discussed in your meeting where Zocks was in, and we're mapping all of this data back into eMoney for you. And what you saw was just a few seconds there. With that, I will pass it back to Drew.
Stephanie, thank you. And right on time there. Appreciate it. So super helpful. I mean, again, when I came over to Zocks, I saw what the power of the Zocks and eMoney integration could be. Again, taking conversation and filling out the eMoney facts, both basic and advanced. Scott, definitely appreciate you taking the time here today to be with us and tell your story. And for anyone out there that wants to learn more, feel free to go to zocks.io and take a free trial. But Scott, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.